technical difficulties, so hopefully you can see through Tammy's phone, and she's trying to make it accessible. So we call the meeting to order. Tammy, if you would please do the roll call, please.
Okay. Mr. Fasagi,
Here.
Mr. Cox,
Here.
Mr. Crease,
Here.
Mr. Elzey,
Here.
Mr. Henderson,
Here.
and Mr. Kerrigan.
Here. And for the record, we have all members of planning and zoning present and one alternate.
And of course, you will not be allowed to vote in any matter.
Understood. Next item is election of chairperson. Tammy, if you'll take us through what we need to do here.
Mr. Sloan, could you do that? It's just time to elect a chairperson. And Mr. Sloan, if you would just
Every
explain to
year,
him.
The chairperson needs to be elected to this board, and the term will be until the next election of the chairperson. So, you five that have the vote, make a motion to nominate someone and a second, and then if that person gets the required majority vote, then they will become the chair.
Mr. Kerrigan is willing to do it again up to my date. Chairperson, I would second that motion. I'm going.
So you would call for the vote.
All right. If you'd like to approve the motion that we have before us, you say aye. Aye. Looks like it passes.
So it's unanimous.
Okay, we're moving on into the consent agenda. First with the minutes from the January 6th meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look over the minutes? Yes. Yes. Are there any questions that you have in the minutes or any corrections? There being none, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the minutes for the January 6th P&Z meeting as written. So moved. Motion. Second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. So the minutes of the January 6th meeting are approved. We're moving into the development order, and this is a quasi-judicial hearing.
So, Mr. Chair, you would want to get a disclosure from any members of the Planning and Zoning Board that may have had conversations with the applicant. That would need to be on the record before you then swear in the witnesses and take any testimony.
And we can swear in this is all up on time.
Yes, sir.
So you all heard our attorney. Has there been any communications that need to be disclosed?
No, but I did leave it dry.
Okay.
Visitation of the property is not a problem. It's just discussions with the applicant. So apparently there's no.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and let our board attorney again explain what a quasi-judicial hearing is to all of you here that are guests, and then you'll need to be sworn in officially.
All right, this is a hearing before the Planning and Zoning Board for them to decide on a recommendation to the City Council. As a part of that, the individuals who are going to give any comments and testify have to do so under oath, and the city clerk will swear all potential witnesses in. There'll be a presentation by the Ms. Mills Gutcher, and then after that, then anyone who wants to speak can speak. The applicant will be able to cross-examine all witnesses, as would be the city and the planning and zoning. So, with that, Ms. Clerk, if you will swear in any potential witnesses. So, anyone who thinks they're going to testify needs to stand and raise your hand.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Okay, yeah, Lauren, come on up. So there are only two items on the consent agenda tonight. The first is development order 2902 Highway 98, and This was reviewed in the January 6th meeting and tabled because some issues needed to be resolved at that time. The site analysis was one of them that was discussed, so if you would bring us up to date on what's happened since
Certainly,
then.
yes. As you mentioned, this came before you at the January meeting, and at that time, we still had some outstanding issues that we needed resolved, and during the past month, we've been working with the applicant, and those issues have been resolved for the most part. The applicant did resubmit the site plans in January and included some of the things that we needed them to address. At this time, as far as planning is concerned, we are recommending approval of the development order for the building at 2902 US Highway 98. It's a two-story building with some rooftop decking for people to be able to go on top of. Knowing that 30th Street is a one-way street, we are requesting that the conditions of the approval include proper signage and directional flow arrows on the paved area within the site to indicate that there's a one-way out. You can't go out of the development and turn left to go south. You're gonna have to turn right and come around. So including that condition, in addition to that, the plan set and the notes of the plan set include the height limitation of 32 feet. We did receive some information that they were going to have a mean height of 32 feet, but it wasn't on the site plan set. It was in the narrative they also supplied. So just having that included in the notes on the site plan set. And then, of course, whatever conditions that the stormwater review required also, if you could adopt those as part of the motion. As a recommendation to the city council.
So the applicant will be able to cross the.
So next we would open public discussion, but do we need to hear from someone else on the stormwater?
We were good with it.
Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and we'll move to the board next, but public discussion. Would anyone from the public like to come up and speak on this issue? No? All good? Okay. All right, then I'll open the board up to discussion of this piece of business.
I have a question, one question, probably either Laura or you could answer that. I know you got one way coming out, it has to go. How is that coming out one way? Is it going around the back of the warehouse or is it going right in front of the warehouse? I know Al Capi has Ace Hardware and then behind it you have that warehouse. And the street's one way there, and if it goes back further, it comes around and comes out by the Bracewell store.
So it's my understanding they will have to go behind the Ace Hardware because the egress, is not forward of the front. Well, irregardless, it's a one-way street, so they're gonna have to go out to the right.
Okay, so that'll be all the way around the back then where the Bracewell building is, behind the warehouse too.
Behind the Ace, yes, possibly.
Okay.
Sounds like we're talking about two different things. So you're talking about behind
Well,
Happy's Hardware or behind Bracelet?
Right. If they're,
It is, when I'm talking about Al Capi's store, right behind it is his warehouse.
Yes.
Is that an actual street between them?
It's a public street.
That is a public street
Yes, sir.
between them?
Yes, sir.
And then it continues on behind
Yeah.
Mango Marley's and comes.
That's
to
right.
stop sign,
That's correct.
which is where other traffic's gonna flow when you have a grocery store there. in
That's
some
right.
respects.
Or you park on the right side of Ace Hardware.
Mhm. True.
Yeah, that answers the question. I didn't know if it was gonna be there or if it's gonna go further down the street and like Bracewell's.
So maybe it's, if where you discharge, if where you come out of the lot is further back, then that street, can you come forward on that street? Is that what you're asking? So,
Thank you, and Laura got it exactly right. It's a right in, right out driveway to the parking area. And the egress follows the same path that anybody who parks on the side of Ace, not in front, on the side of Ace would follow, which is a left turn immediately behind the principal store, the main store, between the warehouse and store, following a public roadway, eventually making its way back out to exit at 2nd Street and exiting at 32nd.
Yeah, that street that's there on the side, that continues back, we're gonna put the other subdivision, that's gonna be on the water. So that behind that with the principal, because eventually it's going to be a street there. That's not gonna happen.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question for the engineer about stormwater. I noticed, so I read the stormwater report, and I noticed that, your expectation, which I think is perfectly valid, expectation that once the site is developed, the amount of runoff from the property is gonna be at least double what it currently is in the empty lot. I'm looking at the graphs now, it's going from pre-development about 1,500, rain runoff, sorry, I don't know the units there, 1,500 cubic feet in the first 10 hours, and then that moves to 4,000 cubic feet in the first 10 hours once the site's developed. And I noticed from the plans that you're planning to sort of utilize the existing runoff from the lot. Some of it goes down 29th Street, but most of it goes down 30th, and you're taking some, I'll call them elevation improvements to sort of push the flow more down 30th Street than 29th Street. So I walked the site today, and I noticed that there's a little bit of a crown in both 29th and 30th Streets, sort of behind the property. It's not much. And I didn't have any engineering equipment, so I can't tell if that crown is lower than the crown of US Highway 98. I would assume it is. But I guess my question is the expectation that the water that the additional water that's going to be flowing off this property once it's developed and pushed down into 29th Street in sort of the existing water flow that we have basically today. Is 29th Street going to be able to handle that additional flow? And I recognize you can't answer anything that doesn't have to do with your own property. Maybe that's a question for the city. Does the city has the city had any calculations or thoughts about the increased runoff on 29th Street once the site is developed?
Right, and I'm not sure, Rush in our office is our stormwater engineer, who's the one that actually took a look at this and ran the calculations, and he was comfortable with it. I can bring this to him tomorrow and see if he gives us some feedback. You said it's right there, 29.
Yeah, well, sorry, I may have misspoke. I think it's 30th Street is what we're concerned about. Yeah, with most of the existing flow going down 30th Street, a little bit down 29th. But then you guys are planning to not alter that. You're still planning to have the majority of the runoff go down 30th Street, which is the egress route.
Will you just state your name for the record?
Oh, Emily Thomas, the Acre Engineering.
So it's just a question I have about
If I could possibly answer. Good evening, Council. My name is Rick Moore, I'm a professional engineer, civil engineer. I'm a company, Warpass Consulting, based out of Tallahassee. I'm also a resident of Mexico Beach at 114 South 34th Street. And my wife and I are on a glide path trajectory to join you as full-time residents in retirement. We have intimately familiar with drainage related to the site. And we did an analysis, an engineer in our office did an analysis that started with the presumption that before Michael came, there was pavement, asphalt, a couple of buildings on that site. We didn't take any credit for that runoff as a pre-development condition. We didn't try to match the amount of water that flowed before we got started. We basically started with the concept of a total retention, a capture of the design storm on-site, percolating on-site. There's always going to be the bogey that's out there that says when it rains a lot and percolation doesn't work per plan, what happens? And what it does is it follows the pre-development flow path of draining. If it does spill over the side of the swales, or retention swales, enters into the right-of-way down the edge of 30th Street and makes its way to the north to the ditches or the canal system that's out there. But I think it's arguable that we're actually improving the situation for providing retention and not counting on any permission to let pre-development be defined as pre-micro. we're starting with the pre-development condition of, it's just saying, it's a vacant piece. So that's it, so that's the design concept, that's the calculations that have been submitted, kind of verify that the size of the swales, the percolation capacity of the swales actually capture and retain the design storm. It's a 25-year, 24-hour storm, that's your local design.
Yeah, no, I appreciate I'll call them the added improvements to your site that you just mentioned, with sort of that little gravel pad sort of retention between the highway and the parking lot. I appreciate that. I was just wondering, when it comes to let's call it a 48-hour saturating storm that we have a couple of times a year, and we do have runoff from the property. I guess, again, it's probably more of a question for the city is what do they do along the 30th Street?
Long term, I would love, as a future commercial property in Mexico Beach right now, residential guy, but if somebody could drag a ditch down the eastern side of 30th Street in front of the many warehouses onto the big property that eventually goes into the canal system in the back. But it's funny, the property sits at the top of a big dune, essentially. If you start at the Gulf, it goes up to the high point where the property is, and it starts to drop again back at the property behind. And for some reason, the top of the dune it must have like a little dip in the top, because there's a puddle on both the restaurant side, by the coffee shop, and there's also a puddle that's right there by the side parking beside the Ace Hardware store. It would be great just from a public works improvement if there was some future plan to drag it. It doesn't have to be a very deep swale, but a drainage conveyance that will allow that water to move in.
So that is what I noticed just by eyeballing it. Sounds like you've noticed that with much more calibrated equipment than my eyeballs, that there's a little there at the top of that dune there is a little dip.
Like a thumbprint in the mashed potato.
Yeah. So, anyways, there's an observation I made. I'm not voting tonight. It wouldn't affect my vote.
Any other comments or questions regarding the consultant's report or the engineering report? And Anchor recommends approval based on their analysis. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we started this one last month. Laura, for clarification, you're making a recommendation. You can stipulate your suggestions again, please.
Yes, so the recommendation is for approval with the two conditions. As mentioned, one is the proper signage and directional flow arrows to direct traffic north to exit the area. And then the other is that the stipulation that the plan set include a note on the notes page that restricts the height of the structure to 32 feet.
That conversation is taking place with the developer.
Yes.
Both of those are accepted.
And if you all have that at the bottom of the agenda. So given that, would anyone like to make a motion on this?
I'll make a motion that we recommend to city council approval of development 2902 US Highway 98 application with the two conditions, include proper signage and directional flow arrows on the roadway for traffic egress of the site, and two, stipulate the plan set limit the structural height to 32 feet in the next zones.
I'll second that. All right, we have a motion from Lee, a second from Ross. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you guys for working together. Okay, next we have final plat approval, cottages at Paradise Cove. And Emily with Anchor.
Good evening, Emily Thomas, Anchor Engineering. So we went through and we reviewed the final plat for the cottages at Paradise Cove. We are recommending approval contingent on a few items. There are some things in the as-bills that we think need to be addressed, regarding water, sewer, and stormwater, just a few items, not many, and we've already relayed those to Dewberry. And they've already sent us some as-bills back at the end of last week, and we're going through those now, so it looks like they've already addressed those, but we're still working through the drawings. We also recommend that any portion of the work that's not 100% complete, there's a bond issue. And I believe that the only items that weren't complete are sidewalks on 15th Street, and Duke Energy was still working on underground power street items. So anything that's not complete, we do recommend a bond be issued, just to make sure that gets 100% complete. And then, like I said, Dewberry went ahead and issued us the revised as-bills. We're going through those now, we got the committee last week, but it looks like all of those items that are listed there have been addressed.
So it looks like there's still some outstanding items on this.
Yes, there are the three here, the water, sewer, and stormwater, there are 3 items in the as-bills that are still outstanding. Like I said, they did issue a new set of as-bills at the end of last week. We started going through those today, we just we weren't able to get through them enough to have an update, and this went out before we were able to review, so. We recommend approving just contingent upon us checking those items, and I can send an email to Ms. Haley, so we can just let her know it's been addressed.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll open this up for public discussion. Would anyone from the public like to come up? Nope. Anyone from the public? Okay. We'll close public discussion and move to board discussion. Anyone on the board like to comment?
I have a quick question about sidewalks. You mentioned that that's sort of an outstanding or an open issue.
That was the last update I got, I think it was about a week or so ago, was that they were still working on the sidewalks on 15th Street.
They're not there yet.
And so they're working on adding sidewalks.
Yes, it's part of the plans, it's just not done.
Okay, so I got the plans up, maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing. 'Cause I guess I don't see the sidewalk. So my question was, is if the sidewalks get worked through, then the plans need to be updated to show the sidewalks? Maybe I'm reading wrong.
If they're not on the plans, then they'll need to be updated. The last thing I saw was that they were wanting to add the sidewalks, when construction kicked off on the first house, the first lot. But yes, that would definitely be added.
Yeah, so I guess I would make that a stipulation then. If and when the sidewalks are approved, then we need updates.
That's what she said, yeah.
Oh, was that one of the
Yeah, the sidewalk is one of them.
Yeah, sidewalks, and then, Duke Energy was working on,
Emily.
and that could be a separate, contract, yes.
Okay.
I'm Dave Rising from Dewberry. I'm representing the developer.
So I don't, were you sworn in, is this still a quasi? Okay, then, yeah.
Yeah, so what you're looking at is a plat, sidewalks won't show up on the plat, sidewalks on the plans. But yeah, there is a sidewalk on 15th Street, about 300 foot, that the developer, he would like to tie it to the first, building permit, so when he has his contractor doing the sidewalk to the house, they can also go on 15th Street and do it, but he'll bond it if the city wants to bond it. It's about $5,000.
What are his plans for what's gonna be on there? You know, looking at the back, lots back here, they're pretty small. 800 square foot is what it is.
Yeah, those are just the townhomes in the back.
In the very back, yeah, are they gonna be single story, two story?
Might do so.
Two story? Okay. No, I actually went back there and I looked around today, and I think the only thing I see that's gonna be a problem for anybody is the garbage truck getting back there and getting back out there. That'll be interesting for them.
Those garbage truck drivers are really, really good. They back up on the road twice a week. Fantastic.
Now, one thing, that parking back there is full, I wouldn't want a vehicle back there and take my chances with it.
Again, my roads are not the width of normal roads, so you may have a right kind of skill there.
Thank you for your additional info. Any other members of the board have any other comments on this?
Chair, can I ask some questions?
Excuse me?
Can I ask some questions after you all finish?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
The townhouses in the back, you're stopping the street before you get to that little T back there? So the little T part's gonna be private?
Yeah, I believe the city doesn't, the city won't, take over the parking lot of a private development for townhouses.
So all of that is parking?
In front of the townhouses?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, there's drive aisles, yeah, it's all parking.
Okay, but you'd have to have some thoroughfare in there to get cars in and out
Yeah, oh,
of the parking area.
yeah, it's all
But,
connected.
but for purposes of the city, you are simply showing the road ending at the line there where those little townhouses
The
start.
right of way.
Okay. And I saw where it indicates the right-of-way is varying. So what's happening with the right-of-way in there? Why is it varying?
It might just be because of the, when it meanders to the backside, it should be, I believe, 50 or 60 feet all the way through.
Okay, well, you may want to check that. The next thing on the dedication language, I was a little confused about what's going where. You've got some easements going to the HOA, and then you've got some non-exclusive easements going to utility providers, which would include water and sewer. Is the city not going to be providing water and sewer?
No, it should go to the city.
Okay, well then the dedication down here, and you're distinguishing private easements and easements, and I couldn't see on your plat that there was a distinction. So you're saying down here that the city's only getting the road, but the city should be getting a dedication of the easements for the water and sewer also. So whoever's working on that language needs to get with me and
Well, I submitted it to the city and I asked them for review so it could get redlined because I think there were a couple of corrections that were.
Well, yeah, there's some typos down
Right,
here,
right.
but
So if you could, get that back to Julie and then I'll get it to the surveyor. That's correct.
okay. Yeah, I just can't see the distinction between what you're calling private easements and easements on the drawing, so I'm not sure. Who did your survey?
That's CE, I believe, or Panama City.
Skip Rutherford? So the dedication language is going to have to change, but the intent, as I understood it, is the HOA is assuming the stormwater
Yes.
and the utilities, the electric and cable or whatever else you're putting in there would go to the specific providers of water, sewer, and that portion of the road is depicted would go to the city.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a number of items in here that. Some of
That and some typos on there.
have already been
Yeah.
detailed by Kimberly Thomasy and the group at Anchor, as well as this
Well,
addition.
yeah, the items that were missing on the as-built, yeah, we've submitted this back to her, she's just needing to process them and check the box. We're good.
So at this stage, are we seeking a final plat approval based on a number of changes?
That's up to y'all. I mean, I can work with them before the city council, but it's whatever y'all are comfortable with.
Mr. Chairman.
I have a question, if I may.
Sure.
So, and this may not be the time to bring this up, I haven't seen the plans, but have we double checked the road, and it sounds like, do we get a fire truck, a ladder truck in and out, turn around, that kind of thing?
I don't know what the city has done as far as inspecting.
Okay, I didn't know where, this is the first time, I haven't seen it with these.
Yeah, I'm concerned about that T at the end down there.
Well, I was back there today, that's why I asked about the garbage truck, all this out here, you got the width of your road that comes back like this, and there's the width of the road right here, once it goes back into that T, there's parking spots in front of every one of these, all the way through, so it's just a narrow strip that goes back through there, once you get into that.
And listen, so I haven't looked at these, that T may work to turn the ladder truck around, but that'll be the gauge, I know you guys are in the planning process, I just wanna bring that up.
No, we're beyond the planning process. I mean, you've got $2 million on the site. I mean, it's not, to me, it's not, I'm not trying to be contentious, but it sounds like this should have been brought up at the initial plat.
I'm not involved with that. I will be, when this hits my desk, and so we're gonna need to make sure that the design, And that's why when you said plat approval, I didn't know how far we were, that's why I wanted to bring that
Oh,
up.
sure.
We're gonna need to be able to get the fire truck, the biggest piece of apparatus, which is the ladder truck, in and out.
Which, at the time of this approval, the city did not have a.
Sure. So, just something to think about. I just wanted to bring it up now. We'll need to look at that. I don't wanna get too far, like you say, you're already 2 million and then that come up, but that will be the question.
With a two-story building, is that going to require a ladder truck?
And that's not how it reads exactly. So the way the code reads as far as apparatus responding, it is, you have to have space for the largest apparatus in the fleet. The reason for that is, these may not, but as we continue to grow, they may be able to run it. The roads have to be able to support. The ladder trucks aren't necessarily just for going up, right? So you use them for different things. That's just the way that it reads, so. Just something for us, we just need to look at that.
That may be an issue that, I don't know how you want to.
How close is he ready to build?
He's not sure what he's gonna do, if he's gonna market the whole site or if he's gonna build himself. But I mean, as soon as he gets the plat approval, he can report.
I think I've seen it, sorry, I think I've seen him lay utilities down.
Yeah, Duke Energy's still out there putting their full environment. They've been paid, I mean, they're completely free.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the streets paved?
Only, yeah, the one street's paved for the back.
Is it all the way to the back?
Yeah, the whole
including-
thing's paved all the way back, and all the parking spots that you don't see on here. All these units back here have 2 parking spots in front of them, so it's really narrow once you get back in there. That's something that's gonna have to be looked at then, because it's gonna be real tight.
I don't know how we can make a motion to.
You really can't.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to deny and these things be looked at?
Or take
Or
it.
continue.
Table it?
Yeah, table.
I'll make a motion to table the, development order.
No, it's not a development
Well,
order.
the,
Plat.
plat approval, until the fire department has a chance to look and see if they can get the truck back there, and this meets what the new code is to get the equipment back there. Because that is a narrow area back there.
Okay, we have a motion to table it until the fire department can look at.
And the language, dedication language would be.
Yeah, the dedication language and the boundary and the side.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second.
I just have one quick question. There were several other things that she mentioned.
Right.
And that wasn't included in the motion.
Sidewalk was in there, you had.
Revised
sidewalk, you still had
as-bills.
some stormwater that had to be.
Revised as-built,
Mhm.
yes.
Well, to be specific, the revised the as-bills for 2 issues. One was the sidewalk, and 2, you mentioned Duke has still got some upstanding issues.
Well.
I'm asking.
The revised as-bills, those were some items with the water, sewer, and stormwater. Separate
My
issues.
question's only so that they'll know specifically what they need to do, because we've done this to other applicants where they come back and we say, well, wait, there's one more thing we want you to look at. And I don't want this applicant to have to do that.
So the question is, do you want the additional engineering, issues included in the motion?
It's your motion, Rob.
It's your motion. You either include them or you don't.
One of the issues all included.
Yes.
Be the fire, size of the fire truck, the sidewalk, the boundary issue, the electrical,
In the dedication.
and the dedication, all included in it.
I'll second the motion.
Does that include all of them? I think that's what.
Bond. Revised as-built, the bond for incomplete work, revised dedication language, typos on the cover sheet, and fire department review.
Sir, is there anything that you could think of with your knowledge that we should include? in the
Well,
motion so we can
I actually
get
I got some more questions, I guess, than anything else. Typically, excuse me, we don't as-built the electric. You can't even go on the electric. I mean, there's nothing we can do to facilitate there. You pay them, actually, it's quite expensive to run electrical when you're subdivision nowadays. But, I mean, there won't be an as-built for electric. But the water and sewer and the storm, I mean, we've addressed those. As far as the fire truck, I submitted this about a month ago to the city. I don't know why a fire review wasn't done.
I don't think it's a point of answer for
Yeah.
that.
No, I'm just,
Don't answer that.
just, I guess getting on record.
Okay.
And then, oh, and as far as the comment, and the changes to the plat too, you can just get the red line, we can survey and make that adjustment.
Sounds somewhat similar to the last issue, which a month ago, there were some issues, and Laura helped identify those, and the developer worked with the city and with Laura to come back and get approval tonight. So if you can do the same, I think this motion has included everything that Anchor has already identified, plus the fire access, which is clearly important. So now we know what we need to go do.
Is that something we can have before next week's meeting for the council? So
No,
we're not
it's
costing
still on
an
the
additional
table.
month?
I can't speak for the fire process.
You haven't had a vote yet, you.
That's true, so, no, answer his question. So we do have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that motion carries. As far as the timing, that sounds like the
They
city
have
would
to
need
come
do
back
something.
before y'all, whether y'all wanna have another meeting. Cause you tabled it.
So then I think the answer is no to that.
About the fire department, no one's happening. Well, what do I have to do? Right now, it sounds like it's more everything on the city, what the city needs to do to justify the bill. The fire inspection,
Chris, can you weigh in on how the city will approach this?
Yes, we will, we'll take a look at the fire issue, work with building on that as far as what's
I'll
required.
get with Sandy in the morning.
Yeah,
We'll look at
That's-
it in the morning.
that part's not an issue, that can be handled fairly quickly. Getting the rest of the information to, Anchor, that would be on you, how quickly that can go, and then just the reviews of the
Yeah,
events.
if you'll have Skip Rutherford send me the plans
okay.
and, have him call me.
But it's still.
So, yeah, with this table, there's nothing, I mean, we can't do anything from the city's perspective or get it on the council agenda until the board has the opportunity to come back. So the earliest would be next meeting.
So, does the developer have to re-advertise it, send out new mailers when the new meeting's gonna be?
Not
Table
next
it
meeting.
to a date certain, we need to table it to a date certain.
To the March,
So I
to
need
the March
table it to the
meeting.
March meeting.
The next meeting.
All right, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Mr. Attorney, do we need to amend that then, since the motion was just a table and not table to date certain, or how does that work?
Well, you can have an either amendment, you can have to withdraw your second, have an amendment, and then put it back through, or you can have, a subsequent motion to bring it back from the table at the next meeting.
I'll just make a motion to bring this issue, the approval, back to the March issue.
March
March
meeting.
meeting.
And that's March the 3rd.
So this is just a question, can we, if time is, and I'll even know the time of the essence, is there a way we can amend the motion that if it's curable and acceptable to the board, it doesn't have to come back?
No.
Okay.
You have to make a recommendation, so the only
Okay.
way you can make a
Fair enough.
recommendation to the.
Fair enough.
If I may, if time is of concern, I believe the board can schedule an additional meeting to revisit this in 2 weeks perhaps, or something along those lines.
So if you want to change your motion to be the next meeting of the planning and zoning board,
What is the next issue he has to address on there? I was down at the property today walking around, still a lot has to be done, electrical and everything else, they're still working on it.
Well,
I mean,
but that's out of his control, like I said, Duke Energy, I don't know when Duke's gonna finish. But that would just prevent him from actually building anything. The city, technically, I mean, they can approve the plat. It's just he won't be able to pull a building permit until they got power. They've already got water clearance through DEP. We've had all the sewer inspections. I mean, all that's been submitted for review to the city.
I just went by what you said earlier, that he wasn't sure when he was gonna be yet. If he was gonna contract it all out to be built, or if he was gonna build it.
Before we move forward.
Well, you started a motion. Is it to the next meeting of the Planning and Zoning Board or to a definite date? What's your motion?
You can keep it as a definite.
I hate to just keep talking around the table here about this one little squirrely issue, but we do have the ability to call a special meeting. as a board, right?
Is everybody here and,
So we don't have.
for a meeting and,
You don't have to.
You don't have to, you can just say the next meeting rather than.
The next meeting, the
March.
Planning and Zoning
Just say the
Board.
next meeting. Before it's specific date, we have to call it special meeting. Not
To
like
make certain to avoid notice.
So you'll be changing your motion.
I think you have to take.
That's why I'm trying to
10 days
just figure out if you're
notice.
setting a date
You
or
have
the
to
next
say
meeting.
the date here to avoid renoticing it.
amend the motion to bring this issue back to the planning and zoning board at our next meeting.
But you're saying, Laura, that the publication would have to be done again if they don't set a date.
That's right.
So that doesn't help scheduling a special meeting.
I mean, 2 weeks, you would give everyone plenty of time.
That's still
Well,
good.
you say that.
Is that giving enough time
I
to?
don't know that.
Wait a minute. For clarification, if we set a specific date, that fulfills your need?
It fulfills the need of not having to re-advertise.
Okay,
Because you're essentially saying right now to the public,
okay.
this is the date.
So we give the specific date, so now we don't have to re-advertise. But that doesn't preclude us from calling a special meeting prior to that date.
Well, not if you're gonna,
Then you would have to advertise
You'd have
and
to
you have to
advertise, it's
give
different.
sufficient notice. which-
And-
Is that a slower path?
Well, I believe they give 10 days notice, don't you? Tammy?
Mm-hmm.
So you could set a date certain, and if it comes back and it's not ready, you could, again, continue it to another date,
You do that.
but you need to set a date.
Well, for purposes of driving the nail and closing this book, why don't we say 2 weeks? And as you say, Mr. Attorney, if things are not ready in 2 weeks, well, then it just goes.
We convene and then
This
continue it.
is February 3rd, we could say the 17th, and then if all the documents are not ready, then it simply goes to our regular March 3rd meeting.
But you'd have to convene, do that, and then take it to another meeting, again, to prevent further publication.
That seems like probably the most efficient way to do it. So you're back to your calendar.
Is there a motion on the table? I know you started one, but is there one on the table?
He started one, but I'm not sure I understand it.
He tried to put it up for all the objections.
No, this was just about the meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
That was-
When is he coming back?
Puts a motion on the table to bring this issue back to the planning and zoning board on the 17th of February at 6 o'clock for decision if all the paperwork is in at that time.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, all in favor? Any opposed? So that motion carries for February 17th, 6 p.m.
Before you close the meeting, I have a question. Okay, go ahead and do it. That's good.
Absolutely.
At our January meeting, we tabled a request for the setback variance. Could somebody give us an update on what's going on with that? Have they come back to the city at all?
38th.
For the 38th Street area?
So, that's an excellent question. Lance withdrew his request for the variance, but we have received communication from the attorney to
who, from the applicant's attorney?
Yes, Charles Costin.
So that'll be upcoming.
I haven't seen it, so I don't know what he's saying.
Well, we just got it today. No, I don't, unless they're asking for a variance, it won't come back for you, so we can figure out the legality of what they're asking.
So we're done with this.
Maybe.
Well, exactly.
So they withdrew the variance.
The applicant withdrew the variance out.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anything else from the board? Yeah. There being no other business, anybody make a motion to adjourn? So moved. So moved. Officially adjourned.